Good evening and welcome to the program, The Love of People and Governance, here on Spectrum Television here in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State. My name is Rachel David White. Well, this is a program that bridges the gap between the government and the people and talks about socio-political programs as it trends here in Nigeria. Well, today, in the course of this program, we'll take a look at some of the reports that are making the rounds today in Nigeria. Days back, we reported that he was the federal government had withdrawn the suit filed against him concerning illegal possession of firearms and ammunition, and of course he was arraigned on another 20 count charges with two other persons. While the federal government of Nigeria today arraigned the suspended CBN governor of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, of Central Bank of Nigeria rather, Godwin Emefiele, before a federal Capital Territory FCT High Court. And report says Emefiele was arraigned before Justice Hamza Muazu of the FCT High Court in Maitama on a 20-count charge of illegal possession, illegal procurement, and the arraignment of over 6.9 billion alleged indisposed at the moment, while the second defendant is a female CBN employee, Saadatu Yaro. Yaro and her company, April 1616 Investment Limited, are to be charged along with Emefiele on 20 charges of procurement fraud. Also has to do with conspiracy and conferring corrupt advantages on his associate. While the offense is contrary to Section 19 of the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act 2000, Emefiele himself was, however, present in court today, and Yaro's counsel told the courts that she took ill this morning, which made her presence in court impossible, and the lawyer asked for a new date for her appearance in court, which the prosecutors, the Department of State Services, DSS, did not oppose. While following an application for adjournment, the presiding judge, Justice Hamza Muazu, adjourned the matter to 2023 once the date is set, and of course, whatever the proceedings, the outcome of the proceedings will be, we'll be here to let you know. So, quick one, let's get to another report we'll be looking at today. Going to Niger, ECOWAS Defense Chief was supposed to meet today in Ghana to discuss the deployment of a last Thursday ordered the activation and deployment of a standby force to Niger if dialogue with the purchase fails. Well, according to a statement by ECOWAS Commission, the ECOWAS Committee of Chiefs of Defense Staff, CCDC, has commenced the activation of the ECOWAS standby force for the restoration of constitutional order, and it's going to be also tomorrow, Friday, to finalize plans for the deployment of the standby force. And presidential guards led by General Abdurrahman Chiani on 26 July, remember, arrested Niger's President Mohamed Bazoum. Economic sanctions on Niger, including a 7-day ultimatum to the junta to reinstate the ousted president, and the junta defied ECOWAS and formed a new government on the eve of the second emergency meeting convened by the bloc. And last Saturday, a Nigerian intervention team of Islamic scholars met with the junta leaders to discuss resolutions, after which the junta leader agreed to dialogue with ECOWAS. But before then, 2 attempts made by ECOWAS to meet with the junta leader had failed. And of course, I would say President Muhammad Buhari, President Bola Tinubu's led ECOWAS is ready for another option if the dialogue does not come to possible terms of agreement. And away from that, we'll also take a look at another report to 45 ministers confirmed penultimate Monday by the Senate, while the list of portfolios announced by the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Ajuri Ngalale, more task with added appellations. For instance, the President splits the Ministry of Petroleum Resources with the appointment of Ekperikpe Ekpo as Minister of Petroleum Resources. Well, it is not clear if President Tinubu will retain the position, oversaw the affairs of the ministry during his 8-year tenure, and we had different issues in that sector. Also divided are the ministries of finance, budget and national planning, as well as works and housing with Wale Edun as Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, and of course Atiku Bagudu, Minister of Budget and Economic Planning as well. David Umahi and Ahmed M, respectively. Abdullahi T. Guarazo is the Minister of State, Housing and Urban Development. The SWA Ministry of Youth and Sport Development has also been split into two and placed under the supervision of John Eno. 5 People's Democratic Party PDP governors Nyesom Wike, who worked for the victory of Tinubu, was appointed Minister of Federal Capital Territory FCT. Wow. Now Tinubu, well touted to man the Ministry of Information, was eventually assigned to supervise the Ministry of Solid Minerals Development, and the newly created ministries and their ministers included got more tasks, with added appellations include Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare Ali Pate, Minister of State, Health and Social Welfare Tunsus Keyamo, who just came in, while Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation is given to Beta Aidu. It looks like the women are. Minister of State Environment and Ecological Management has been given to Ishak Salako. Minister of Water Resources and Sanitation Joseph Utser to Abubakar Kyari, and Minister of State Agriculture and Food Security Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi. Well, the list of ministers with no changes in their appellations include Defense, Mohammed Badaru; State Defense, Bello Matawale; Education, Tahir Maman; State Education, Yusuf T. Sanunu; State Federal Capital Affairs, Ibrahim Gaidam; State Police Affairs, Iman Suleiman Ibrahim; Steel Development, Shuaibu A. Aldu; State Steel Development, U. Megari Amadu; Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris; Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice has been given to Latifat Kiruka Onyejocha, as well as Special Duties and Intergovernmental Affairs, Zephaniah Jasalo. Others are Power, Adebayo Adelabu; Transportation, Adeboyega Oyetola. Affairs goes to Uju Kennedy. Meanwhile, President Tinubu will on Monday 24 by 10 a.m. And the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, said this, of course, Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. And also, according to report, President Bola Tinubu has scrapped the Ministry of Niger Delta. Of course, government sources on this morning told newsmen that PC, and the source noted that following the scrapping of the Ministry of Niger Delta, all the works and duties previously mandated and their portfolios, which we have taken time to reel out today. Well, he also created some new ministries, while the names of some existing ministries: Economy, Health and Social Welfare, Aviation and Aerospace, and of course Gas. It used to be called Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, manned by Issa Ali Pantami before. And of course, Hadi Sirika, Farouk rather, is now the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and being changed. And of course, some are still maintaining their position. Well, is a duplication of the Niger Delta Development Commission. So we're seeing this come to play again by a Nigerian activist, Shehu Sani, a former Kaduna Central Senator. According to him, he said Tinubu should not have with records of accomplishment. So these also are the things we are going to look at today, and we'll also get to find out your take. Meanwhile, let's just go on a short break. When we come right back, our guest will be here.
which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigeria Police Force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian Police Force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are these?
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the matters council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord.
This amazing country, Nigeria, legally speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Hello, welcome back. It's still the program, The Law of the People and Governance here on Spectrum Television. And right about now, our guest is already in standby to address some of the issues we're looking at today. So let me quickly introduce our guest, political analyst, let me put it that way. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Good evening, SpectrumTv.
And happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Okay, so let's quickly get to the first point we were talking about today before we get to the main issue. That's the ministerial list and their portfolios. Let's get to talk a little bit about the Niger coup. And of course, we've been talking about this issue over time. And then it looks like the dialogue, I remember you were here and you said it looks like 1 minute federal government agrees to the Niger coup plotters, that's the junta, agrees to dialogue, and the next minute it looks like everything is back to square one where it started. And now we are seeing ECOWAS have to put themselves together to try and...
Well, first and foremost, before coming to what is going to play out, we have to understand the fact that there is a very high level of mistrust among the leaders of ECOWAS. It tends to be a situation where nobody is trusting nobody, and under such suspicious atmosphere, said so. I'm still of the view that the ECOWAS leaders have so much left to be desired. There are a whole lot of things to look at, because it seems that in Africa, particularly, we like being reactionary. Which for me is not the way to go. So the African leaders should ask themselves, why coup in this 21st century? And if the words of IBB is anything to go by, that the military find it very simple and easy to embark on a coup when there is frustration in the society. And that has cast a whole lot of aspersion on the part of the African leaders. It's a question of African leaders not doing what they should do in terms of providing services that they have a long way to go. They have a long way to go. And for me, I still believe that militarization is not the way to go. So they should do everything diplomatically possible to ensure that they bring these guys on board for a dialogue. Because even if you should embark on a war, at the end of the day, it will still take dialogue for the war to be ended. So there is no alternative to dialogue as far as crises and conflicts are concerned. There is no alternative to dialogue. So I want to kind of enjoin so to say, our ECOWAS leaders to do what they could to ensure that every possible means is actually looked at as far as diplomacy is concerned for this matter to be resolved, because we all know that the different African economies happened if the situation escalates to war. So, and war, as we all know, is an evil wind that blows nobody no good. So war is not an option. Militarization is not an option. Already, look at Nigeria for an example. The country already is divided. You agree with me that some days ago the Senate and also the
And it looked
governors
like
of
it
the
was
northern
going to affect
states.
them most.
Hello, are we together?
Yeah, we're together. Go ahead.
So it seems already there's a divided house. There is a divided house even within the ranks of the ECOWAS leaders. And if the balance is anything to go by, that the house divided against itself cannot stand, then we are of the view that war is not an option. A military action is not an option. And again, we also have to look at it from this perspective, that what is happening in Niger, it seems the majority of the people of Niger are comfortable with it. It seems the military juntas are actually acting in the way that appears patriotic to the citizens of that country. So then, be careful. It's a kind of a delicate situation. So it calls for caution. It calls for high-level diplomacy. It is not a time to show up. It is not a time for one to say, like in the case of Nigeria, the giant of Africa, and all that. No, it's not a time for that. Dialogue is still the way to go.
Okay, let's say that President Bola Tinubu-led ECOWAS wants to go the other way by putting military personnel in place to, of course, restore back democracy in Niger Republic by all means, since dialogue doesn't seem to play out well. Are there things you would say needs to be considered before we say let's go to war? And what are those things?
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you, if you can hear me.
So what do you say? Can you please?
Okay, I said, now, if ECOWAS wants to use military to restore democracy back in Niger by all means, and eventually they say let's go to war, what are those things you think that the President Bola Tinubu-led ECOWAS needs to consider or put in place before moving? Because just like the subsidy removal, we didn't have plan B, and it's leaving Nigerians in I would say, I don't know how to put it, but you can explain it yourself.
I understand your point. You see, the problem with African leaders is that they are still having these colonial mentalities where they see citizens as subjects, where they feel that citizens should not be consulted before certain actions are taken. The African leaders are still very much operating on this top-bottom approach of governance, which for us is obsolete now. It's not something that is obtainable. So the African and the ECOWAS leaders should first and foremost find out from their citizens, find out from their respective countries, because you can't declare a war when you don't enjoy that support from your citizens. I don't know if you understand my point. Otherwise, that will amount to you digging your very grave. So as far as Nigeria, for an instance, is concerned, there's a whole lot of divisions as to why the government should not take that part. And I think it is important that the government seize this occasion to find out, to consult the citizens, to find out from their respective countries what the citizens feel it should be. Because the fact that they are at the helms of affairs does not give them that ground to behave in a very military manner that they are condemning. So it's a dicey situation. The situation is very, very dicey and the rest of it. And talking about what they should put in place. I don't think it's something that should be something that should be done within a month or so. Let's take Nigeria for a case study. The economy of Nigeria cannot support war situations. The economy of Nigeria is dwindling. The economy of Nigeria is struggling. So how do you now embark on war with such situations? So it's a very dicey situation. And I pray that the ECOWAS leaders, they should see the need to explore to the fullest the instrumentality of dialogue. Because for now, that seems to be the only viable options for the continent of Africa as a whole and for the ECOWAS nations in specific. The instrument of dialogue seems to be the only viable options to go. And I pray the ECOWAS leaders should not allow themselves to be pushed, because if what we are actually, the feelers we are getting from the media is anything to go by, it seems there is a player somewhere that is dictating certain tunes, because there is saying that he that plays the piper, they test the tunes. So the ECOWAS leaders should not allow themselves to be used by foreign authorities, by the Western world. The issue of Russia and Ukraine is still very much here with us. Russia must have thought that by the time they embark on war, that within a week or so that Ukraine will have submitted. But it has turned out to be the other way around. That means you cannot actually embark on war on mere assumption that you are greater than this country, that you are powerful than this country, that you can do this, you can do that, because you don't actually know what is backing these people up. Already we have seen. For me, it's a fallout of the struggle for world power. So it's not just Niger as a country. Don't forget, France is there somewhere. Don't forget, the Russia is somewhere watching. Don't forget, the American is also. So it's not just a Niger thing. It's not just an African thing. And this is why the ECOWAS leaders must be very, very careful in order for us not to have, in the course of trying to look for good, we end up having worse than the very good we are trying to obtain.
All right, let's quickly move away from that now, Peter. Let's get to come back home to Nigeria, where the president has assigned 40 portfolios to 45 nominated and screened ministers here in Nigeria. Well, some ministries also got more tasks with added appellations, some ministries were split. The Ministry of Petroleum Resources was splitted with Ekperekperekpo appointed as Minister for State Gas Resources, and of course Heineken equally appointed as Minister of State Petroleum Resources. And till now, it is not clear if President Tinubu will retain the position of Senior Minister of Petroleum as his predecessor Muhammad Buhari, who oversaw the affairs of the ministry during his 8-year tenure. And we've also seen of course, a whole lot of issues and reactions from different persons concerning the portfolios that have been assigned to these ministers already. So what have you observed so far, and what is your take?
Well, first and foremost, we understand that it is within the prerogative of the president to assign portfolios to his ministers. The president has the jurisdiction over that. It's within his prerogative. Nobody is doubting that fact. And again, we have to also understand that the portfolios so allocated, as and sprung up so many surprises. For an instance, everybody before now expected Dele to be a man-to-man, the information ministry. But the president haven't had the prerogative of woman's word as and sprung surprises, and that then we also have to understand it from the point of view that government ministries and departments most times are structured based on the visions of the leader in government. So I want to believe that must have been the rationale behind the splitting of some ministries, like what used to be the Minister of Petroleum. Today we now have the Minister for State for gas resources
and for
that of
petroleum
petroleum
resources as well, and even
these are all
the sports sector we have for youth, and of course we also have for sport as well.
Yes, yes. So these are all pointers to the directions the president wants to go, or these are all pointers and parameters to some key areas of concentration and the rest of it. So having said all those things, I would say it's not that it's not a big deal, it's not a new thing, and as you also rightly said that. We have not actually seen a substantial minister named for the Ministry of Petroleum, and could be it will go the way it has always been. And that is why one has to be very careful with precedents, because of precedents to a very large extent constitute a source of a law. If something is repeated over time, it is tempted to be seen as norm. I don't know if you understand my point. So the issue of a president manding the Ministry of Petroleum has been something we have been witnessing right from
but do you see that sector, do you see it suffer again, like we saw it in the past administration, where President Muhammadu Buhari assumed that position, put himself in that shoes? Do you think his presidential roles is going to hinder his performance in that position?
Well, before now, we have not actually been seeing effectiveness. That's the area I was driving out. Because right from the era of Obasanjo, the President Obasanjo was in charge of the Petroleum Ministry. And Yaradua was in charge of the Petroleum Ministry. And of late, Buhari was in charge of the Petroleum Ministry. But the missing link has always been that of effectiveness. Because the office of a president ordinarily is very, very demanding. And you agree with me that Nigeria is hydrocarbon economy. Everything seems to revolve around oil. Then what you think that the president ought to have looked for? A very competent hand to man this ministry in order for him to free himself, in order for him to have time to attend to state matters, serious state matters, because he has never worked overtime. So there is that likelihood that since we couldn't achieve anything reasonable when the former president was in charge of the Petroleum Ministry, there is that likelihood that if this president wants to toe that line, then there is that fear among Nigerians that nothing serious will be achieved in that direction, and that will be very, very unfortunate. That's because in government there is supposed to be check and balances. So if you now have a president who is the head of government, manning a ministry, then who is reporting to who? And that's where the problem is. And Nigeria, the democracy in Nigeria is still evolving, not like that of the Western world, where there is a clear-cut separation of powers, where the legislative arm of government can actually stand its ground to perform that surveillance or oversight functions, where some actions or inactions of the executive could be queried and actually called to order. Nigeria has not come to that point. So it becomes a problem when there is no clear-cut demarcation that will actually give room for check and balances. I don't think it's healthy for our polity. I don't think it's healthy for our economy. And if a president is anything to go by, he has never served us good in the country. So it's a disturbing trend. It's something that is worrisome. It's something that calls for concern. And it's something that the citizens should rise up and speak up. That, look, Mr. President, already you have enough within your purview. You have so much within you to attend to. And sitting down to arrogate more functions that ordinarily that the time you might have the willingness, You might have the willingness to perform, but you don't have all the time because you cannot divide yourself more than necessary. So that is where the problem is. That's where the problem actually is. And it's quite unfortunate because President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as a governor of Lagos, functions of government should actually be separated and given to different bodies for effective service delivery. And it's quite unfortunate that haven't had the opportunity to be the president, that he seems to have forgotten about so many things he's been advocating for. And that's the problem we have been having in this country. We remember the era of Babangida, when he was embarking on privatization and certain things that President Obasanjo then was at the forefront of criticizing that government policies and that. But when Obasanjo now had the opportunity to lead the country in the capacity of a president, he was actually doing those things that he was preaching against. And that, for me, is hypocrisy of some sort.
Do you think that has anything to do with the seat? Remember those things you were supposed to work for, behave the way another person. Do you think it has anything to do with the role that has been assigned to them or something?
Well, I don't think it has anything to do with the presidential seat.
Because it's happening. Like you've mentioned, administrations come in and it takes over and it's doing the same thing, and there's been no change, no difference all these years.
I think what I want us to understand is that Nigerian mentality, that Nigerian factor, where very unfortunately the leadership we have in this part of the world, it seems to be characterized by greed. It seems to be characterized by selfishness. It seems to be characterized by a whole lot of deceit. A situation where somebody will be preaching certain things, and when you are given opportunity to implement what you have been preaching, either for or against, then you now do otherwise. It's a story. Every sitting governor in Nigeria is against local government autonomy. Every sitting governor in Nigeria is always against having a local government autonomy. And that's because of the finances of the local government that they have been lording over. But as soon as their tenure will elapse and probably they move to the National Assembly, maybe say the House of the Senate, they will now be talking about local government autonomy. Then you ask yourself, when you were an incumbent governor, what did you do? So that is the problem we are having in this country.
Okay, let me bring you back to the can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, let me bring you back to the ministers and their portfolios. We're seeing the Niger Delta ministry scrapped off some time ago. Former Governor Jose Okalu had said that it should be scrapped off, and of course we're seeing that scrapped off because according to the president, NDDC will oversee everything that has to do with that. What do you have to say about that?
Well, firstly, let's understand that the Niger Delta ministry was a child of necessity. There was a problem that necessitated the creation of that ministry.
Okay, but so you think it's not supposed to be scrapped off?
I'm coming. Haven't created the ministry. I am of the view, so objectively so, that the ministry had never lived to its billing. The Niger Delta region had never felt the impact of having a specialized ministry to oversee the affairs of vis-a-vis the so-called marginalization of the region. So over time, the Ministry of Niger Delta, even the NDDC as we have not been used to solve the very problems that caused them to be created, have now become a conduit pipe. It has now become some area of settlement where you put people that are very close to the government, and whatever they do in these ministries and intervention in agency, nobody is giving account. The problems that necessitated their creation in the first place are not anything to be looked into, and that's quite unfortunate. It's quite unfortunate. So if you want to look at it from that perspective, then nobody will have to blame the president, because over the years we have been having the Minister of Niger Delta. The East-West Road that was one of the core responsibilities of the ministry is yet to be completed. And yet, year in, year out, money has been allocated to these ministries. So it's high time that we should question ourselves, because as far as we know, the Ministry of Niger Delta has always been manned by the Niger Deltans, but the desired result has not been felt, has not been achieved. So to that extent, nobody can actually truly blame the president
for scrapping off.
and that. But now, in the true sense of the word, it's quite unfortunate. It's quite unfortunate that a ministry as sensitive as that, a ministry that was born out of the intention to solve the peculiar with us,
do you think this will have any negative effect? Do you think it's going to have any negative impact or effect on maybe the speed of projects that should have been executed? Or you remember, it has been added to everything concerning Niger Delta has been handed over to the NDDC.
Well, I would like us to be very, very objective here. He will have had some negative effects if the ministry had been living up to its billing. If the ministry had been performing its responsibilities, if the ministry has been, performing the functions that was prescribed for that ministry, it will have had some negative effects. But we have found ourselves in a situation that even when we had the Ministry of Niger Delta, nothing so much changed in the Niger Delta region. So to that effect, I don't see any negative effect, because there was no positive effect to some extent, apart from having our people as ministers and our people that are supposed to understand the peculiar problems of the Niger Delta turn around to connive, if I should use such words.
Okay, because I was going to ask for a proof, evidence. Okay,
Paulinus Peter, the people of the Niger Delta.
Let's move a little bit away from that because of time. Now, you're taking a look at former governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike. Ordinarily, what portfolio would you have felt that will be or would be assigned to him? And also, talking about Minister of Defense given to Mohammed Badaru, who is a politician. Shehu Sani, a former Kaduna Central Senator, had said that Tinubu should not have appointed a politician as a defense minister. He should have appointed a retired military officer. So just merge those two together in 2 minutes.
Well, those things, those notions are mere sentiment that should be considered. Government functions is not about, to a very large extent, it's not a one-man show, let me put it that way. It's about institution, and it's a well-orchestrated, structure. You have the permanent secretaries that are actually the engine of government. I don't know if you understand the problem. Then talking about, some Wike as a minister of the FCT. Haven't had opportunity to test government to some extent. I will tell you that a minister is a minister, and I will tell you it is not a ministry that makes a minister relevant or powerful. A minister is relevant and powerful to the extent the leader of the government will want you to be powerful. But where we should actually have problem, where we should have an express concern, should be most times our inability to match up talent or match of skills with responsibilities. That is the only point I feel we should have issues. But aside of that, I will tell you that a minister functions to the extent the leader of the government will want and allow him to function. A minister becomes relevant and powerful to the extent the leader of the government will want him. So it has nothing to do with the nomenclature of ministries or department, but it's, in this part of the world, it has to do with the relationship and the trust level between the occupant of certain ministries and the head of government. That's
Okay.
how government in Nigeria to some extent operates.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. I know that there would have been a lot of questions or raised concerning that particular issue. I mean, the ministerial portfolios that have been appointed or assigned rather to ministers is something that, of course, we need to take time and look at the capacity of these persons and the roles that have been assigned to them as well. Thank you so much, Paulinus Peter.
They have been doing a great deal of work to enlighten and educate Nigerians. Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. All right, back to the people. It's been the program, The Love of People and Governance, and this is where we close the curtains for the week. We're going to come back again with trending stories and issues here in Nigeria and beyond next week. Meanwhile, don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, SpectrumTv.ng, and also follow us on Twitter at SpectrumTonline, all as one word. My name is Rachel David White. Good evening. Catch you again next week.